I don't think anybody looked at Christopher Wray, the FBI director, speaking in front of Congress and said, that is a forthcoming individual. That's a guy who's letting you know what's up. You know what? I like Christopher Wray. I think he's very warm. He's very welcoming, totally inviting. He's bringing you in. You actually get to know what's going on when Christopher Wray is in charge. No one thinks this. It's because no answers were given. Time and again, it was, well, let me get my staff with you on that one. I don't think I could really discuss it here. Even Jonathan Turley, the known lawyer, saying Wray's playing Americans for chumps. So what will Congress do about it? I mean, that's the question before us. Guys, welcome to the show presented by Americans for Prosperity, americansforprosperity.org, economic liberty, free speech. That's what it's all about. That right there is the man behind the man and still in front of the man. I love the way the imagery works. It's Ed Morrissey. He is the capo di tutti capo over at hotair.com. He is also the author of the book Going Red, a fantastic look at some previous elections and what it takes to win future elections. I have my signed copy, of course, in my very hands. I don't know how, Ed, anybody looks at the testimony given in front of the House Oversight Committee by Christopher Wray and thinks that this is a forthcoming government that's honest with the people. What was your take of Wray's testimony in front of the House Oversight Committee?
No, I think my take is exactly your take. This guy doesn't present any answers, and to a point that is absolutely ridiculous. Now, one of the issues that came up was the Richmond, Virginia office's, memo targeting rad-trad Catholics, as if the FBI could even possibly identify that as some sort of crypto radical violent group that was about to unleash, hate violence across America over their opposition to abortion, somehow overlooking the fact that the entire Catholic Church is opposed to abortion. This was prompted by the Southern Poverty Law Center and their political manipulations. The FBI office in Richmond, Virginia fell for this crap. It got exposed in February. Now, I bring this up for a purpose. It got exposed in February. This was a memo that was developed at the Richmond, Virginia office. It was signed off by 5 members of leadership there, including their general counsel of that office. And once it got exposed by Uncover DC, the FBI hit retreat. Oh, no. This was a work product that's really bad. Never mind. We're not going to do this. And at the time Congress said, we need you to explain how this happened. And Christopher Wray said, well, we need to take a look into this. Now, the FBI is supposedly the premier investigative agency in the world, Tony. The premier investigative agency in the world. It is investigating its own office in Richmond, Virginia. And 5 months later, Christopher Wray doesn't have any answers.
Right. Now,
come on, man.
First of all, 2 things here. First, when you say rad-trad, that is radical traditional Catholics, correct?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Right?
Yeah.
Just
too much lingo.
On the same page. And then talk about not being able to do an investigation. There it is. Secret Service couldn't crack the case of the White House cocaine. There is no, there are a few things, Ed, that bring Americans together, regardless of socioeconomic status, regardless of race, religion, anything else. You could gather 100 Americans from every corner of society. And if you tell them, yeah, there was cocaine found in the White House, but the Secret Service doesn't know who brought it in, they'll all say to you, nah. They all know that the fix is in on this one, or certainly that's the politics of it.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean, it's even got better because it said they sent the bag over to the FBI laboratory, and the FBI laboratory said that there were no fingerprints or DNA on the bag. And come on, man. Somebody wiped that bag with a cloth, to quote Hillary Clinton. That's the only way that happens. Somebody takes a bag out of their pocket and drops it someplace in the White House. It's going to have fingerprints on it. It's going to have a DNA transfer on it. The idea that this thing was pristine when it got to the laboratory. I mean, and I'll credit the FBI with actually telling the truth about this. Somebody cleaned it up before it got over to the FBI laboratories. The only explanation for this. And the idea that in the West Wing, where presumably there's surveillance video all over the place because, they're protecting the president and his staff.
Yeah.
That is the operational headquarters of the executive branch. So my guess is that the Secret Service has a camera or two around there. The idea that they couldn't identify who dropped a bag of cocaine is ridiculous. And Tony, I'll ask you this. If that bag had anthrax in it, do you think that they would have had somebody in handcuffs by now?
I would only assume that they would. And this is where this argument becomes very, very odd. We're talking about safety and security here. We're certainly talking about personal responsibility here. And the White House has no interest in it. And it seems that leftist media has no interest in it. Talking to Ed Morrissey of hotair.com, this brings us back to the FBI. They won't answer a question about the what they did in terms of investigating Catholics in America. They won't answer a question about January 6th and what level of people were maybe in crowds in places. I'm not making the argument that there aren't some people guilty for engaging in a riot. I am saying, where was the FBI? Why won't they answer questions? There's a multiplicity of things. How about the idea of warrantless searches and you have phone companies just gladly giving over records to the FBI of phone calls and other things without a warrant? Even Democrats asking about warrantless searches, whether it was Representative Lofgren of California or the leader of the Progressive Caucus, Pramila Jayapal out of Washington State. This was Kevin McCarthy on Fox News speaking to Martha McCallum.
We heard from Christopher Wray yesterday, and his overall tone, I would say, is, look, we do an amazing job here at the FBI. And here was his response when he was asked about whether or not the Bidens do get any special treatment in these situations. Watch.
Are you protecting the Bidens?
Absolutely not.
Do you believe that? Do you agree with what Christopher Wray said? Do you think that he's credible with that answer, Speaker?
He's not credible with the answer. And I think his whole testimony shows the FBI is actually broken under his leadership. And I'm not talking about the rank and file agents who are doing their job every day. Thank you for the work you're doing. But the bureaucracy is broken. Because remember what Wray said even in his testimony here. He wouldn't answer questions. He didn't tell us why the FBI went after Catholics. He wouldn't apologize when the FBI went after parents. He wouldn't tell us or apologize for using companies to spy and their data to spy on average Americans. But what's even more importantly, when he knew he had a 1023, a person that he actually still pays to this day an informant, that provided him information about the Biden Inc. family, he ignored it. And he didn't.
Yeah. I mean, that's a litany of things. Here's the question, and the only one that matters, Ed Morrissey. When will the Republican Party hold the FBI responsible? When will they, in the words of many, punish the FBI? And how in the world does that happen?
Yeah, I mean, this is tricky because you can impeach an FBI director, but then the Senate has to remove an FBI director, and I don't know that they're there yet. I will say this, though. There was a development this morning where it came out that the FBI had seized the Google Mail of a couple of Devin Nunes's aides, and I can't remember the names of the people who were involved, that were looking into Operation Crossfire Hurricane in 2017. And that just came out, I think, this morning or late last night. And that is an egregious intrusion on congressional authority. Maybe if that gets sustained and it's shown that, and this may have been before Wray was even FBI director, it could have been under James Comey. In fact, I think it may have been under James Comey, that this is going to be something that might move the needle a little bit more in the Senate. But I actually think that an impeachment vote at this point would basically close it out, right? So you impeach him by 3 votes, 4 votes in the House. All of a sudden this becomes, well, this is old news. The media stops paying attention to it. I think it's a much better strategy to keep bringing FBI officials to Capitol Hill to have televised hearings and keep asking them these questions, especially the one now about the House intel staffers that were surveilled by the FBI.
But this isn't the first surveillance that we've seen, wasn't it? Going back to when James Rosen was at Fox, wasn't he being surveilled? That's a la the Obama administration.
Yeah, I mean, he was a reporter, right? And they were surveilling him because supposedly he was leaking information. This is different. The FBI is surveilling the Article 1 branch, the officials in the Article 1 branch for doing their Article 1 duty of oversight of the FBI. I mean, that is really a constitutional insult, and I don't think that Congress can stand by and allow that to stand.
Well, this one certainly allows itself to be insulted very, very often. I have never seen, especially when it comes to Congress, a part of a branch so willing to abdicate its responsibility to the executive branch. Talking to Ed Morrissey of hotair.com. The question here is about defunding. Now, Christopher Wray, I don't care that he's an appointee of Donald Trump. That means nothing. Donald Trump appointed a lot of bad people who couldn't do the job. Those are just the facts as presented. I don't care that he's a Trump appointee. It means nothing. I'm also not saying that Wray hasn't done work to try and clean up what it is James Comey and company had done there in making it a completely political branch. And you can even go before him. But Wray is not answering the questions. When we talk about punishment, does the Republican Party, do the Republicans in the House have what it takes to defund the FBI, as people like Congressman Thomas Massey made note of repeatedly in his commentaries to Christopher Wray?
Well, I mean, not in this session of Congress. And again, the problem is that Democrats control the Senate. Democrats control the White House. They can pass a bill that defunds the FBI, but the Senate is going to put the funding back in. And either you shut down the entire government or you're going to have to figure out some sort of way to compromise on this. But I mean, I think that this becomes a better issue in terms of voters in 2024. And that's the reason why you keep having these hearings. You keep bringing people up there. You keep having these C-SPAN clips that go out and get people's notice on this, especially in terms of the censorship regime. He wouldn't answer questions about the censorship regime either. And that got exposed 6 months ago. And he still doesn't have answers on that, even though the FBI participated in that. There's all sorts of emails that show that the FBI participated in that. And Chris Wray 2 days ago was saying, that's not what we do here. Of course it's what you do here. We've got documentary evidence to prove that's what you do here. So I think I think it works better as an argument in 2024 for a way to just clear the decks and get people in there that are going to actually reform this and actually drain the swamp, as has been posited, since 2015.
Actually draining means actually firing people by the tens, by the hundreds, in many cases by the thousands. If I'm yes, that's how it's done. Before I let you go, it was a story over at Newsmax that kind of took me by surprise, because this is the kind of talk that you expect out of the Trump acolytes on social media, not from news. And this was it. There's a DeSantis memo reassuring donors and laying out for them what the campaign is. And the campaign seems to be very aggressive about New Hampshire. It's necessary for Ron DeSantis to reassure donors. What do you know about this?
Well, I think it's a response to a lot of this media narrative going around that the DeSantis campaign is collapsing, which is nonsense. DeSantis raised $20 million in 6 weeks in the second quarter. Never Back Down raised $67 million organically in Q2. And 83 million an additional 83 million got transferred into Never Back Down from DeSantis's 2022 gubernatorial campaign. These guys have got a lot of money. They had a lot of money before that. They're building an organization. It's not just New Hampshire, it's also Iowa. In fact, I would say probably more Iowa than New Hampshire, and South Carolina. And the point of that is to build a ground organization that can turn out the vote. Now, you still have to be a good candidate. I mean, this is stuff that I wrote about in Going Red. It depends on how you build this thing and what the communication levels are, how you're contextualizing agendas for voters in local communities. All of that matters. And I don't know how the DeSantis campaign is doing that, but I do know that at least they're building a vote turnout machine that doesn't exist for any other candidates, especially Donald Trump. And so the idea that we're 40 days away from the first debate that Donald Trump isn't even going to participate in, and somehow a campaign is in collapse, that's just that's just gotten $20 million in 6 weeks is ridiculous. And I think
it struck me as odd. I just wanted to hear it. His name is Ed Morrissey. The book Going Red by Ed Morrissey. You can find it at Amazon.com, wherever fine books are sold. You just won't find a really cool signed copy like I've got right there. Very fancy. I'm a very fancy man right there. Ed, always appreciate it. Thank you, and appreciate you being a part of the show, being with us. And my thanks to Americans for Prosperity, AmericansForProsperity.org, economic liberty, free speech. Find a chapter near you. Get going. Actually do something. Feel like you accomplished something at the end of the day. AmericansForProsperity.org. And I will catch you next time.